great to be here. Also, my daughter is here. Melissa, yay! My friends Bob and Nancy and a bunch of other friends too, so thank you all for coming out. Could you hold this microphone for a second?
Audience participation.
Audience participation. Please, you let me know when we're ready to start?
We're ready to start.
Okay, go. Brothers and sisters, we're gathered here today at Dr. Sketchy's. Can I hear an amen? Amen! We're gathered here to pay tribute to Joe Shuster, the greatest artist in the world. Why? Because he invented superheroes. He invented the whole comic industry. A young teenager from Cleveland, Ohio, sketched up a muscular man in a circus outfit with a cape and an S on his chest. And this young man took it to DC Comics from his lowly home in Cleveland, which we'll see next.
Lowly!
Very lowly, very much in the poverty district of Cleveland, Ohio. I took this photo in 1974, just before they raised the building. But it was always in a bad neighborhood, and he and his family, sister, brother, mother, and father lived in one little room in this apartment building, and where he first drew up Superman with his geeky writer pal Jerry Siegel. Let's hear it for geeks. Right. So they took that to the geeks, the little lowly geeks took that to the big corporation, DC Comics, sold Superman to them for $130, which they split. And but still, DC did throw them lots of bones at the beginning. And Joe went after he created Superman. Here, who we don't know if on the first cover of Action Comics whether he's a villain or a hero. He's wreaking havoc with these cars, and people are running like this, like they're terrified out of their wits. But Joe became a wealthy man, built a big mansion here in New York for his family, and sat at the head of the table since he took care of mom and dad and sis and bro, and lived in a well-appointed place. But he was always bugged by the disparity between what he and Jerry got, his writer pal, and what the DC Comics, what those folks got. So Jerry and Joe hired a lawyer, this guy, and Albert Zugsmith, known as Zuggy, and they took DC Comics to court because even though DC was giving them dough, they had sold all the rights for that $130. And you know, we're pretty chagrined by that nonsense. So they lost. There was a court case up in White Plains, and they lost miserably because they really had signed an ironclad contract. Let this be a lesson to all you young artists with your big ideas out there. Get a good lawyer and a good accountant. And so Joe fell on hard times and started illustrating, unbeknownst to us all, he started illustrating these sleazy S&M printed up in print shop in Brooklyn's basement little booklets. No one, including myself, I've been a fan of comics since I was a little kid in Cleveland myself, and studied the history of comics, and I have a lot of fellow pals who are comics historians. None of us knew about this material, but I found it at a rare book sale in a couple, not too many blocks from here, one time in a bookseller's stall. In the back of his table he had a dusty cardboard box, and I kind of peered in because he was keeping it in the back corner. I was wondering what he was hiding, but it was like this kind of 50s kind of porn, and I immediately recognized the style as being by Joe Shuster, though it wasn't signed because this stuff when he created it was highly illegal at the time. And I'll show you, and I wanted to show you one of the most remarkable aspects of it, if please will go to the next slide, is that many of the characters in these books look like our pals from Metropolis. Clark Kent, who you might know as Superman, I don't know if you guys know that, that might be a revelation. Lois Lane, Jimmy Olsen here with his famous bow tie, smoking a reefer in this case, and let's hear a big boo for Lex Luthor. A big boo for Lex Luthor. Big boo! the feeling some of you people are kind of bad people. You're kind of sympathizing with Lex Luthor. I don't know. So anyway, you'll notice as we go through a few of the slides here that these characters look like those denizens from here. Like so, here we kind of have a Lois Lane whipping a poor Superman here. And the pulping prose says the whip fell relentlessly as if Eddie were imbued with the same fervor as her mistress. Next slide. Here's that picture I took our friend Jimmy Olsen from. Puff it in a few minutes you'll feel wonderful. Jimmy was on a mission. I actually wasn't going to put this in the book at first. I just thought it was too weird. But then I don't usually show it to audience because I thought it's probably not weird enough for the Dr. Sketchy audience. You might, if your sex life is kind of getting dull or something like that, things at home are kind of getting mediocre, you might try this. The Red Ant's Bit and Nipped where the honey had been smeared. All right. I thought this was one of the most bizarre illustrations Joe did because it seems like this guy's just like has his beer and he's watching TV at home. I'm going to change the channel in a second, which I'll ask Sketchy to do. This is another one of the really, I thought, very bizarre scenes. Try this at home if you must. I began to put the something of the lush
Naked
beauty.
skin of the lush beauty beneath me.
Oh, thank you very much. And so now listen. This before we show this next slide. I think we're at the right place. Yes. Go to the next one, please. I wanted to point this out because I think Joe kind of did something interesting in these books. So it was one of the few pornography books that was integrated. It was also present in the 50s, and also he cast many of the villains as hooded menaces, which I think was kind of a statement against the Ku Klux Klan. So even though Joe was thought by many to be disruptible for doing this material, there was also a social conscience going through it. The next slide is probably the worst of all, the most hideous kind of conversion you can imagine, which is probably going to be duplicated throughout this room today. Life drawing. Can you imagine anything more sordid than that?
No.
Okay, all right. Now listen, seriously, this next slide is it's not for the squeamish. This is, I mean, some of this stuff does get really perverted and nasty and really twisted. So I'm going to ask if pregnant people that would be easily offended, people who are just like maybe have just a weak stomach. If you're not good on roller coaster rides or something, please close your eyes for this next slide because it is rather sick, perverted, disgusting, and weird. Okay, please, yeah.